Hello folks. I've been thinking, and my thoughts have got me a bit worried as to the future of games. I suppose I'll have to go over what I'm meaning. But first, think back to, like the days of the PS2, something like that, PS3, what I'm going to refer to as the good old days in this video. For example, like £20–30 maybe at most you'd pay for a game. Sometimes they'd be more, but that's generally what I remember the prices being like. But yeah, you could get fun characters in games like in Mugen Souls Z. You could have an enjoyable story like Final Fantasy 13 too. I enjoyed the story anyway, so yep. You could have great gameplay, which is Lightning Returns for me. Final Fantasy Lightning Returns. I quite enjoyed the gameplay in that game. You could have games that are not a buggy mess. There is the occasional bad egg, unfortunately. There will always be that. But oh well. There is games that have hours upon hours of content. You could play Skyrim for hundreds of hours without any kind of mods. Just a vanilla game, maybe the DLC. You could play that for hundreds of hours. You could do whatever you wanted. Well, except for killing central NPCs, but we'll get to that in just a bit. There's also games that give you a vast amount of freedom, like Skyrim. Fallout New Vegas is another very prime example, which is probably the most free game in the whole of the Fallout franchise. Last but not least, there's games that always catered to whatever playstyle you wanted. For example, Persona 3 FES, for example. You could play on the easiest difficulty if you just wanted to enjoy the story. The game even said that. Or you could play on the hardest difficulty if you wanted an actual challenge. Those were the good old days. However, nowadays I've noticed a disturbing trend with quite a few games these days. For example, £35 to £60. Okay, sure, discs and whatnot will take a wee bit to print and everything. But what you're really getting for it is like some games are only doing like half the content they used to. I'm gonna go on a whim here and say Bethesda. I'll get to these points later on in the video. Boring characters. For example, Call of Duty. Now that one isn't fair because it is multiplayer based, but still I'm putting it in there. Bethesda games as well also don't really have too many memorable characters for me. Well, at least like I said, for me. There might be characters that you remember, but this is really just for examples here. Bullshit mechanics. Cough cough XCOM 2, I will also get to that later on, so hold your horses. As well as buggy as hell games, also XCOM 2. They also cater to a very niche group of gamers these days. For example, Call of Duty. I'll get to this point later on, but it caters to people who can't really aim. And I will bring up a really well thought out argument. Well, not thought out, but I've saw this online and it kind of proves the point. There's also half-assed story. Call of Duty. The campaigns have been getting shorter, so yeah. And yeah, just not a lot of freedom overall. Bethesda, damn Essentials tag. So yeah, I should mention right now, if you notice any inconsistencies with my voice, well, I've had to do a few retakes. this is segmented, I'll edit it all together. But anyway, on to the lessons. Well, not lessons, but points that I really want to bring up about how things are changing. The first point I've got is about bugs. Well, recently, everyone's been digging into Overkill Software, the quote-unquote independent developer that they are not. Anyway, the one thing that has been plaguing them for a long time now is the fact that they don't fix any bugs, really, unless it's absolutely game-breaking. Like the Goat Simulator thing where the game kept crashing all the time when you spotted a special unit. Basically, they were lazy, they're just lazy with not fixing bugs, but there's another thing. They've got arm and leg hitboxes, or rather they have a lack of arm and leg hitboxes. And that's been there for so long. They gave an excuse saying, oh yeah, it's really hard to do. One modder modded it in just an afternoon. And this also leads on to one of my worries about how mods are going to affect games in the future, which I'm going to get to the end of the video. But the thing is though, I've been playing a mod on Killing Floor. The mod is created mostly by one guy, Guardian Knight. You may have saw it, the Path of Neo series takes place on said servers that said Guardian Knight has created. He has got a couple people to help him every now and then, but most of the work is done by himself. Now, just to put in perspective between him and Overkill, he has a job. I know that. In one of the posts on the group forum, he mentions having to go to work or whatever, and having to log in to do something or whatever with the server. So yeah, he's got a job, and he does modeling, he does coding, he has to fix bugs, he makes new perks, he makes new Zeds, he makes pretty much everything that's in the mod today. And not only that, how I mentioned he fixes bugs. Say I were to report a bug or an issue. Within the next couple days you could expect an update to actually fix that. Guardian Knight is really good at doing this, and has been good all the way through, which is more than can be said for a certain independent developer. So yeah, games over the time have been, developers have been getting lazy with issues, and I'll even admit XCOM Enemy Unknown and Enemy Within, Firaxis was like, we're not going to fix the issues. They ditched Enemy Unknown, what was it, halfway through its life cycle? So yeah, it just goes to show that it's not a good sign for XCOM 2. The other thing I've got about bugs is, well, Final Fantasy games generally are not buggy that much. Like you might find 1 or 2 bugs, but they are in such specific circumstances. It's just 1 or 2 bugs. But with XCOM 2, and admittedly Enemy Unknown and Enemy Within, but to a much lesser extent, XCOM 2, that's probably the buggiest game I've played. And I've played some buggy games. I always seem to get the buggiest copy of every game I get. So that's a big issue. And who knows if they are going to fix it. or if they're going to leave it down to modders to fix that. Again, going back to the first point. So, that's not a good thing. Freedom, freedom, freedom in games. We all love the freedom to do what we want. Though, there's some games that are not as... Well, I'll explain. For instance, take Fallout 4 and Fallout New Vegas. Fallout 4. They claimed at E3 you could do whatever you wanted. You find this one annoying NPC and they've got an Essentials tag on them. That's not doing whatever you want. If I want to kill this guy, I should be able to kill this guy. No issues. And I'm not talking about mods here, vanilla game. The only reason I was talking about mods in the bugs section is because that was exclusive, overkill, la da da da. At that point's past. But anyway, I shouldn't need to mod a game that I paid a lot of money for to get the freedom that they so claimed was going to be in before release. For example, Fallout New Vegas. It claimed to be a very free game that you could do what you want. And they were right. Obsidian were correct. You can do what you want. For instance, Many a True Nerd. He done a pacifist run. In Fallout 3, you can't. That's made by Bethesda. Fallout 4. Again, made by Bethesda. Starting to see a trend here. Skyrim, made by Bethesda. Sure, you can do a lot of things, yeah? But if there's just that one annoying NPC, you can't kill him. Though I will admit, Skyrim is still more free than Fallout 4. 4 chat options. New Vegas had you could have a massive list of them. And don't say, oh yeah, it's because they've got a voice actor, voicing you. So does Mass Effect. That's got up to like 6 options per thing. And even then, they lead into other options. There's so much dialogue in Mass Effect that Fallout 4 has no excuse for that. And considering how long it's been in development. Or how long it could have been in development. So, yeah, Bethesda is not good with freedom when it comes to that, and it's been getting worse. Like I said, Fallout 3, Essentials tag, yes. But the chat was still pretty, you could do what you wanted with the chat. Same with Skyrim, but then they toned it down. The other game that I'm thinking you've lost a lot of freedom is XCOM 2, and I did mention earlier about this. Here is my reasons for the timers not being a good idea. Sure, you might like the timers, but not everyone does. The reason why I enjoyed Enemy Unknown and Enemy Within, which I will be comparing XCOM 2 to, is because you can actually take the game at your pace. If you wanted to rush, you could. If you wanted to slowly move up in Overwatch, you could. If you wanted to send just 2 guys on a solo mission, yeah, you could. And you could slowly move up and take the mission out successfully. In Enemy Within, with the timers, there was 4 instances of timers in Enemy Within. Bomb missions, Newfoundland. Both council missions, both pretty rare. Newfoundland a bit more common. Terror missions. If you didn't save any civilians, that had severe repercussions. But you were always going to at least save a few civs. XCOM 2, you lose 7, yet mission failed. And the last timer is the melt. And now this is how you should do timers if you are going to do timers. It's like a carrot on a stick for a pig in Minecraft. You're like, here little piggy, you want a carrot? And you're basically tempting the player. Or the pig in this case. You're not forcing them. The pig, he might decide he's not hungry. He might go a different way and drag you with it. But yeah, XCOM 2 timers are in 90% of missions, from what I've heard. And the thing is though, there's no option to disable them in the game. You have to mod the game. So basically, if you don't like timers, you're lucky it's only PC exclusive because you can mod them out. But if this was on console and you were stuck with timers and you did not want them, well, you're screwed. You've not got the freedom to do what you desire. So yeah, that's a big issue in my opinion. And there was one other thing. The timers, like I said earlier with the terror mission, usually one civ dies a turn. Usually. So you have 7 turns to clear the mission. Otherwise, mission failed. That's worse than any other timer. There is, I think there might be a mod to remove that. But yeah. And one last thing about XCOM 2. And this also does tie into a later point, but I'll go into that more detail then. With the timers, I think they were added in late in development because the game was too easy. Once you remove timers, I've got a mod that makes it so the timer starts once I've been revealed. If I ever play the game again, which I probably won't do for a long ass time. Once you effectively remove the timer ticking, until you're revealed, the game is so easy. Which I don't like. Probably because I'm too used to Long War. Or the original XCOM. But hey, that's just me. Now, I did mention Skyrim. I'm only going to talk about the vanilla Skyrim. Not mods, nothing like that, right? To keep it fair. Basically, Skyrim. Massive open world. Lots of places to explore. They're still finding new places to this day that you could explore. Or even just little hidden stories that are not tracked by any quest log. The game is still being discovered years after its release. And this is without mods. Fallout 4 though, again, Bethesda. I played it. I think I pretty much found everything that that you could do. To me, the game just does not have the replayability. Sure, it's a wasteland. There's not going to be as many places, but what's stopping you from putting in little caves in places? Or like in Skyrim, there's a bit of there's just a very weak bit of ground here. You fall through. Now you're in this cave that you've got to escape. There's so many different little places you could have put in. Or, hell, you could have expanded the map a lot more. Sure, there is DLC to come and whatever, but that's why I'm not talking about Skyrim DLC. Just vanilla, base game, because otherwise this would be an unfair comparison. Because Fallout 4 hasn't got any DLC yet, at the time of recording this. So I'm trying to keep it fair in my comparison with this, but yeah, I still just haven't found enough content to even justify the high price, except for the graphics and everything. But if you know me, I'm not a fan of, well, sure, graphics are nice, but as long as I can play a game, I don't care. But I'm just one of those few guys that doesn't care as much about graphics. So that's the thing. Now at this point I've had to re-record as well. I've had to re-record them all, but this one I'm re-recording specifically because, oh my god, people these days. I'll explain soon. But the first point is that I've got noted down here. The second point, I'm just going to have to recall the facts in my head because, yeah. The first point is games that cater to lots of players. Okay, Persona 4, Persona 3, Persona Q, Shadow of the Labyrinth, a more recent game, but still follows the same principles as the older ones. And Mass Effect. Well, more specifically, Mass Effect 3. I can't remember if Mass Effect 2 or 1 has these options, but yeah. These two series of games, they have options for, if you enjoy the story, it'll make combat a lot easier for you, so you can have more time to enjoy the story and not have to worry about dying to this one boss over and over. Persona Q, I know for a fact, if you die, it allows you to continue up to 10 times, so that you can enjoy the story without being stuck behind a wall all the time. And Persona can be highly strategic at times. Can be. There is some broken combinations, obviously. Every game's gonna have that, but yeah. But then there's games that cater to a very specific niche kind of player. Sure, a lot of people might disable this option, but yeah, Call of Duty. It caters to people that can't aim. Mostly as aim assist. Like I said, people can disable this option. But just think about all those quick scopes or no scopes you might have seen. How many times is aim assist assisted in that? Probably 9 times out of 10, if the player hasn't got it disabled. Now, I'm gonna recall an article I saw ages ago. Red Orchestra. I think it was. Either that or it was Rising Storm. One of the two. Either way, they're both made by Tripwire Interactive, the same people that made Killing Floor 2. And I still think it's a nice game, even though the microtransactions. I mean, it's an early access game, you bought into it. It could change radically, you never know. Anyway, that's besides the point. Tripwire asked some Call of Duty players to come in and test the game. The multiplayer specifically. The feedback they got was highly negative. But when they looked at the gameplay, something like that, I think it was, they noticed it's because the players didn't have the aim assist. They were just sucking at the game. That's the thing. Call of Duty, with the aim assist, it makes it so people think, oh yeah, I'm much better than I actually am. I can go into any FPS and I can do instantly amazing. That's not how it works. As soon as you take away your precious little aim assist, you flop. As was proven with Red Orchestra. And I believe this was kind of the guy's words, but the CEO of Tripwire, I think it was, or the lead developer of the game, lead person of the game, development, said that Call of Duty has ruined a generation of gamers. And I really see the point. I'm going to call on a more recent example that I have. In fact, the game hasn't even been out a week yet. And I'm already seeing how easy games have become. And this one is a bit personal. Pokemon Yellow. I've had it since I was a child. Since I was 3 or 4. I had to use my brain. But it's not like I hadn't done it before. Because games back then, they did require some actual brain usage. Now, the reason why I say this is a lot of people that are playing red, blue and yellow right now, they haven't had a chance to play them because they're either too young or maybe they just never got hold of the game. Or just didn't want to play it on an emulator. You can emulate it on anything these days. Hell, even your shoe could probably run it. But, besides the point. I've seen so many examples of players just... no. For example, I'm level 11. Is there any place I can... is there any easy way to grind? Training hasn't worked for me. It's just the same as any Pokemon game. You grind to train up your Pokemon. And the guy hadn't beat Brock. He was having trouble with Brock. You don't even need a Pokemon at level 11. All he needs is a Mankey level 9 or a Nidoran level 9. He was playing yellow because he had Pikachu following him in the picture. If you use your brain and go, okay, these Pokemon aren't working, go catch more Pokemon. There's 3 Pokemon that can easily help you with that gym. Butterfree, Mankey, or Nidoran. Mankey and Nidoran learn low kick and double kick respectively. I think Nidoran at like level 11 or 12, something like that. So maybe yeah, that's if you go that way. Mankey learns low kick at level 9. Or you could catch Butterfree. Well, rather, a Caterpie level up into Butterfree. At level 10, it learns Confusion. Confusion decimates Geodude and Onix. There was another person that was saying, oh boy, I'm gonna miss the run feature already. Okay, that one's a bit more bearable. Yeah, the running is a bit, but you get used to it. Then there was one person that was just absolute dumb. Lavender Town, the song that killed lots of children or whatever. Did they ever fix that? It wasn't even real. It was just a creepypasta. You have to be some kind of thick to actually believe it was real. It didn't happen. If it did, it would have been on the news. You would have seen tons of news articles. Come on. Things like this. And yet, even, how do you get Brock to appear in the gym? Did you try walking in the door? Because he's literally right there. You don't have to do anything special. He's right there. Though the one thing I suppose I will give people credit for, they didn't ask why there was no special defense stat. Because they were both combined into one special stat back in 1st gen. So yeah, that's basically the long-winded way of saying games these days have made, just made themselves too easy. Or developers have made games too easy. That as soon as people are faced with a hurdle, oh, what do I do? I'm going on the internet to Google this. Meanwhile, people from my generation and a lot of my friends at college, we played these 1st gen games for our childhood. We had no trouble, and at least we actually think to use our brains and go, okay, this isn't working, I'll try something else. And if after multiple different attempts we don't succeed, then we might look it up. So yeah. So earlier I mentioned that, well, developers like Overkill were using mods to say, yeah, we don't need to fix our game, modders will do that for us. I'm worried that more developers are going to start doing that. But that's not the end of my worries. My worries are, especially with XCOM 2 and Fallout 4. Their main selling points are, you can mod what you want as well, right? I'm worried that developers will cut the content they release in half and leave it up to modders to create the rest of the content. Now, a game like Skyrim, that didn't take off in mod until very long into its life cycle. It was pretty much a dying game at the point, but then mods rejuvenated it, made it a whole new ballpark, and it's still extremely popular right now. But the thing was, the difference between this and these games are, this game was towards the end of its life cycle, and then mods gave it a new lease of life. Meanwhile, XCOM 2, Fallout 4, they are taking advantage of mods, but they lack content for vanilla players. Now, with XCOM 2, if you were to port that to console, there's a big problem. You can't mod consoles. Fallout 4 is an exception. For Xbox, you can mod that, or that's coming. However, XCOM 2, you can't. So for PC games, I'm worried that, like I said, mods are going to be relied on to fix the game and create the game. What's next? AAA developers don't release a game. They're just like, here's a little thing, now make the game. That's what I'm worried. I'm worried that the time of good games, with lots of time put into them, are dying. Lots of time, lots of effort, brilliant stories, awesome characters, any kind of person can play it, not a buggy mess, enjoyable. I'm worried that games like that are dying just because developers are getting lazy. They might claim otherwise, but that's just for their PR. They want to keep a good personal rep. Under the hood though, who knows what they're thinking. I've noticed this trend recently and I wanted to put my thoughts out. This has been Scottish Boy 112, signing out. I should also note, after all this talking and everything, not all new games are like this. There are some games that are absolutely magnificent, and they've been released lately. So, yeah, not all games, just these ones in particular have got me worried for a few games in the future. That's all. But yeah, Scottish Boy 112, signing out.